Wide receiver Perry Thompson continues to make noise in Auburn's 2025 preseason camp. We discuss what it means for Hugh Freeze and the Tigers offense on this edition of the Uptempo Podcast. Yes, sir. What's up, Auburn family? What's up to my Uptempo gang? Welcome to the Uptempo Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Dustin Smith. Going to talk about some standout performers from so far in fall camp today. And there's a name that we keep hearing, and I'm excited to get in here and discuss it, man. Before we do that, smash that thumbs up button. Go ahead and sub to the channel. If you are listening on audio, do me a favor. Turn on the notifications. Leave a 5-star review. It helps the show out a ton. So, Hugh Freeze took to the podium today. Auburn's 5 or 6 practices into fall camp now, and he was asked about some standout performers. Who were some guys who were at Auburn last year that have taken that next step? And I'm going to play the clip, and then we'll discuss Hugh's answer.
Yeah, Malcolm and Perry jump off the page as much better route runners, understanding depth of routes, how your releases, how to shave routes against man, zone. I think both of them have improved themselves well there. Defensively, Amarus Williams is starting to kind of understand, last year he's just used to being so athletic coming out of high school. He was just going to kind of, I think I want to rush outside this time, but no, you can't do that in this call. And so I would say he's starting to understand it and get it better also. Robert Woodyard is doing some good things also. Heck, I'm sure I'm forgetting somebody, and not talking about the new guys, obviously, just the ones we had. But Jay Crawford he had a solid year last year, but continues to flash in one-on-ones at playing the ball and with good technique and not so handsy as he was last year. So there's been several of those guys that I think D. Wade's improved a lot, just moving him inside and letting him stay there too.
All right, so that was Auburn head coach Hugh Freeze. Again, asked who are the guys that were on the team before that have taken that next step this offseason. And I want to start with his first answer in Malcolm Simmons and Perry Thompson. We've talked a little bit about Malcolm Simmons. Again, I expect him to be on the field when it comes time to play the Baylor Bears, and I expect a big season from him if he stays healthy. We know that Hugh discussed Malcolm a lot last year and just saying that we have to find ways to get Malcolm the ball. He's not always running the right way, doesn't always know where he needs to be, but he was so dynamic that just had to find a way, whether it be gadget plays, the speed sweep, the screen passes, the creative ways that they came up with get Malcolm the ball. And he had a pretty productive year when you think about it, the fact that he was a true freshman with a so-so quarterback running his offense. So we're expecting a big step from Malcolm Simmons, and hearing that he has really cleaned up all of those issues that he did have in terms of not knowing where to be and kind of understanding the playbook and just everything that it goes into being an SEC wide receiver. But Perry Thompson is the one that I really want to kind of focus on for this episode. We'll talk a little bit about Amarus Williams at the end because I do think that that's important. But for Perry, it's starting to really he's starting to stack days, because you have consistently heard, well, let's go back to spring camp. At the end of spring camp, you started to hear that, hey, Perry's kind of starting to stack days. He's starting to flash a little bit. He's starting to put it together. And then I heard that he had a good summer physically, getting his body where it needs to be, ready to be an SEC wide receiver. Now, look, he has the physical tools, but there's more that goes into it than just being physically gifted and having the size and all that, right? You still have to kind of do a lot of technical things with your body and your endurance and all the kind of stuff that it takes to go into being an SEC wide receiver, and a guy that Perry Thompson who wants to be an NFL wide receiver. He had a great example in Keandre Lambert-Smith. They kind of showed him how to do that. And I think Perry got a little bit frustrated at the beginning and middle portion of last year. And then just the fact that he was that big, highly touted 5-star and he wasn't getting the ball. He wasn't really a part of the offense. But I think that KLS being that mature voice in the room, kind of mentoring him, letting him know, hey, next year's your time, but you got to be able to do these things. I also think that bringing in Horatio Fields and some of a guy like that out of the portal, I think it motivated him, because at first, if you go back to spring, you kind of heard about Horatio Fields getting reps over him. There was even the whole Sam Turner was getting reps over Perry Thompson, and it was really feeling like Perry was starting to slide down the depth chart a little bit. But again, at the end of spring camp, you started hearing his name as he was being a little bit more consistent. He was starting to pick up the details. He was starting to pick up the small things. And then as we've got to fall camp, he's the name that you hear every single day. And he ended spring camp with a lot of momentum. He was the standout guy from, and I'm going to put it in quotations if you're listening on audio, A day. I don't think that was much of an A day, but it is what it is. Perry Thompson was out there balling out from all the clips that I saw, and everybody that was in attendance that day made some really acrobatic catches, doing the things that he's capable of doing. And I know that we spoke about this a lot recently. I just spoke with it with Daryl Dappridge on the last episode, spoke with it with Charlie Five on a couple episodes ago, but I'm going to continue to pound this narrative because I watched these guys play a lot in high school. I watched everybody really outside of Malcolm Simmons more than one time as far as in that Freeze 4 wide receiver class. And this is no shot at anybody at Foley. It is what it is. He had like a sophomore quarterback that probably shouldn't have been playing varsity football. And by the way, that kid's gotten better. Like, I'm not taking shots there, but it was just, he didn't have the best quarterback. At the time, he had a kid that was probably being forced to play a little bit before he was ready. And Perry was asked to do everything. The route trees was not very intricate for him. It was very much they snap the ball. Perry would stand a yard off the line of scrimmage, a little step back screen. He would catch it and just stiff arm guys and run over them or run past them and move the sticks that way. Or he would run a fade route. He'd run a 9 and they just throw it up to him and he would out jump everybody and all that kind of stuff. But obviously, once you get into the SEC, we can just stay on the Auburn side. You're going up against guys like Jay Crawford every day in practice. Hugh Freeze also mentioned in that clip is getting better. That should be scary for opposing wide receivers. If you're going up against guys like Jay Crawford every single day, you're not just going to be able to just jump up and use your athletic ability and out-athlete a guy like that. That's not how that's going to work, because Jay Crawford is just as good as athlete as Perry Thompson, and he has his technique right, and he knows how to do all those things. So Perry had to work on that, body positioning, all the little details of running your routes. And Hugh Freeze's route tree is not Gus Malzahn's route tree, right? Me and Daryl talked about this the other day. So it takes guys a little bit of time, especially a guy, again, that wasn't asked to do a lot of those things at Foley that were super detailed. And I've also mentioned this in terms of what he was asked to do in high school. He was on punt protection. He was on everything, kick return and kickoff coverage. He was on punt return and punt cut. Like, Perry Thompson did everything. He was on field goal protection type thing. Like, he did everything at Foley. He didn't come off the field a whole lot. He played free safety, for them on defense. He was out there all the time. It's okay that it took him a year of college football to kind of learn how to be an SEC wide receiver, learn everything that it takes to be a Division I wide receiver, versus you look at a guy like Cam Coleman, who comes from a team in Central Phoenix City who won the state championship in Cam Coleman's senior year. We know who their coach is, right? Papa Nix. And they run it's just a different thing than what's going on at a lot of these other high schools. That's, again, it's like I said this other day, it's like a small college program being run over there in Central Phoenix City. And I had some Red Devils in the comments on the last video. They like that I said that. Shout out to Central Phoenix City, man. Like, it's the truth. It's just such a well-run, high school organization up there at the top level in the state of Alabama. So Cam Coleman was getting great coaching. And he was already running college level routes. He was already being asked to do things that you wouldn't ask a lot of other college wide receivers to do, high school wide receivers to do. So he comes in his freshman year and he has a nice year. But even with Cam Coleman, you still saw it take him like half a season to get right. And I think the shoulder injury versus Cal had something to do with that, but he still didn't come on till later in the year. It's just hard. So I feel like some of the expectations that were placed upon Perry Thompson were never really fair. And I think that this is the proper progression. And You can go back if you want to. You can dig up the old episodes from a year ago. I kind of said this. I kind of said I expect Perry. I expected him to be I expected him to contribute a little more than he did last year for sure. But I did say I expected it to be like late in the season before you kind of saw Perry Thompson crack into the rotation and be that guy. Because again, I had seen him play and I kind of knew what he was coming from, and then what he was going to be asked to do at Auburn was miles different than what he was asked to do in high school. So what does it mean for the Auburn offense, though, now that Perry Thompson is finding his way, that he's getting significant reps with the ones? It's just another weapon, and it's going to be – I don't know how opposing defensive coordinators are going to handle this. I mean, if we have everybody healthy out there, there's so many options between if you're going with 3 wide receivers, you can have Singleton in the slot and Cam and Perry on the outside. If you're going to go with 4 wide receiver set, you can move Singleton and Malcolm around and then still have Cam and Perry on the outside. You can move all those guys because Singleton can play on the outside. You can really, if you want to do some different mismatch things, Perry's fast enough, you can throw him in the slot and throw Singleton to the out. There's so many things you can do, and I'm going to pound this narrative as well. The emergence of Perry Thompson should also be another thing that cancels out any chance for Auburn having problems at scoring in the red zone this year. The emergence of Perry Thompson gives you another option, another weapon in the red zone, and there is no excuses between Jackson Arnold's legs, between a guy like Jeremiah Cobb's ability to catch the ball out the backfield, and then all the weapons you have at that wide receiver position, whether it be slot guys like Malcolm Simmons who can do different things and keep the defense off balance, or whether it be just guys on the outside like a Perry Thompson, like a Cam Coleman. We'll see what Horatio Fields can bring to the table. There's no excuses. Perry Thompson's become that guy now. He's finally reaching his potential. Good. And when Auburn gets inside the 20-yard line, you throw it up to the big fella, and he can go get it. I watched him make a catch versus Baker High School in the corner of the end zone. That was one of the best catches I've ever seen in person. He caught it with 3 fingers, diving out, fully extended, somehow kept his feet in the end zone. I'm sure if you go back and watch his huddle, or if you go back and watch some of my clips from 2 years ago at this point, if you want to dig back that far and find them, they're on there. It was an incredible catch, an absolutely incredible catch. And that's what he's capable of all the time, but especially using that big body, using that ability to go up and high point the ball, the athletic freak that Perry Thompson is. No more red zone woes for Auburn, because now you have another option when you get down there to throw the ball up to. This isn't no shade at Robert Lewis, but Perry Thompson's built different. And he didn't necessarily know the plays and all that last year. He wasn't ready to be in that situation in that game versus Missouri where Robert Lewis dropped that crucial would-be touchdown. This year, Perry Thompson should know where to be. He should know how to use his body and all those kind of things, and be in the right spot in that position to where Jackson Arnold, whoever's in at quarterback, is able to find him, and we're able to come down with that kind of play. That's why you go recruit those guys. That's why you go and recruit a Perry Thompson type. And what it would mean for Auburn, and the significance that it would mean for Auburn to flip a kid from Foley, Alabama, the same high school that Julio Jones went to, Alabama legend, Atlanta Falcon legend, one of the all-time great wide receivers in the history of the NFL. If Perry can come close, I mean, I want him to reach his full potential, but even if he comes close and he has a good career at Auburn and goes on and gets drafted into the NFL, and it would be such a massive win for Auburn to be able to point to in the future and say, hey, because we know that Mobile traditionally, and that Mobile surrounding area, is Tide territory. Now, lately, Auburn's been able to go in there and get some guys. But when you just look at everything that goes into it, Julio being from that school, Perry was committed to Alabama. Alabama pushed really late to get him to flip, and it got a little bit scary there on the last day. This is a kid that has to pan out for so many reasons, and just what it would signify for Hugh Freeze and for Auburn if you're able to win this recruitment, and then you're able to develop him and get him to the league, and he's able to be productive and help Auburn win games in college. It would be absolutely huge, man. Amarus Williams, another guy that Hugh Freeze mentioned in that clip, and what it would mean for the Auburn defense if he is able to emerge. What does a good season for Amarus Williams look like? I've been saying it lately, and this is not groundbreaking news, but I'm just really kind of looking at the guy that's going to be that second pass rush threat to help out Keldrick Falk, to take some of that attention from Keldrick Falk. I know a lot of people are high on K'Ron Crawford. Again, Daryl Dappridge's last episode, super high on Crawford. And I have a lot of respect for everybody that does. I just got to see it. I still got to see it. So I'm still looking, and I have a couple of questions. And Amarus Williams is a guy that was super talented, and I thought maybe he could be a guy last year that in the second half of the season would come on and start to get some reps and be productive, but injuries kind of held him back. And then he's also talked about maybe his attitude not being exactly what it should have been. He thought he was going to come in right away and contribute. Quickly found out it's grown man business in the Southeastern Conference. You can't just come on the line of scrimmage and start wreaking havoc. Hugh Freeze talked about how Amarus just always wanted to kind of rush the outside of the pocket and do whatever he wanted to do, just out-athlete the guy in front of him like he was able to do in high school. But, man, you got specific assignments, and sometimes you can't just do that kind of stuff that you were able to do in high school. You have to play the play. You have to learn your techniques and do everything like that. There's 10 other guys counting on you to be in the right position, right, and do the right thing. And it sounds like Amarus has really kind of bought in. Look, this was a high 4-star. Some places had him as a 5-star, I do believe. This is a guy that has all the talent in the world, and he can be, and I think he will be in time, a guy that wreaks havoc on opposing quarterbacks. I think a good season for Amarus Williams should be somewhere around like 6 sacks. If Amarus can get around 6 sacks and be just a guy that can consistently get pressure when he's in the game, and then maybe if Crawford can chip in with 5 or 6 sacks and Keldrick can get to double digits, and some of those other guys chip in with 2 or 3, then you're starting to look at it and think, okay, Auburn's had a productive season, up front getting after the quarterback. So I think that the emergence of Amarus Williams would be, look, I think he's the second most talented pass rusher on the team right now. Now, is he ahead of K'Ron Crawford as far in terms of ready to go? Like right now versus Baylor? Probably not. Probably not. Like Crawford's ahead of them on the depth chart and all those kind of things. And Crawford might be a little more ready and a better player at the moment. But as far as just talent goes, Amarus Williams has all the talent in the world. And the only guy more talented than him at that position, right, is Keldrick Falk. So can Amarus Williams kind of take that next jump? Can he set the edge when it comes to the run game on first down? That's very important because he has that pass rush ability, that natural just talent and that ability of getting after the quarterback. For him, it's just kind of like all it is like we talked about with Perry, like with all these young freshmen coming into their second year of college football. Just learning the ropes, man, getting your body right, learning your technique, kind of learning the system. And I think it's big, too, and guys, for Perry and for guys like Amarus, that Auburn has returning coordinators, right? You have Derek Nix returning at OC and for DJ Durkin returning at DC. So for all these guys, it's year 2 in that system. You don't have to learn a new system and learn new verbiage and all that kind of stuff. You have the same guy teaching you the same system. And I think that obviously is it kind of relaxes them a little bit. They know what to expect. They were able to study something that they were already know from their first season all summer long and kind of build off of that knowledge and continue to grow as players and continue to learn within that system. So I think that is a plus and not something that happens a lot in college football. I was going to say it doesn't happen a lot at Auburn in terms of returning coordinators, but the defending national champions, they had to replace coordinators on both sides of the ball as well in Ohio State. So that's just the nature of college football. Coordinators are always leaving and going to different places and jumping ship at the first opportunity. So to have DJ Durkin come back, to have Derek Nix come back, I think that's a part of the reason why you hear like, hey, these very talented guys, they take the next step. They're taking that next step, And I want to finish there. And I'm just going to say this, guys, until I'm blue in the face. I know I've been saying that all summer on this topic. There are guys like Cam Coleman. There are guys like Malik Blockton. There are guys like Keldrick Falk. There are guys like Caleb Harris who are able to come in day one and make an impact as freshmen. But one, as you saw with Keldrick Falk, as you saw with Connor Lew last year, they were very good. They were solid. You could depend on them as freshmen. But how much better were they their sophomore year with a year under their belt? They were even better. They were good right away, right? But they were even better. Those guys are rare. Keldrick Fall could be a top 10 pick. Those guys are rare. Connor Lew's going to be one of the first interior linemen off the board, whether it's this year or next year, whenever he decides to go. That's rare. The Cam Coleman's of the world, they're rare. And it even took those guys, they still weren't their best, right? So with guys like Perry, with guys like Amarus Williams, it's okay if their first year they didn't just come in and light the world on fire. This is the natural progression. We live in a world right now in college football, whether it be portal era, NIL, I'm not sure what it is, but the expectations on true freshmen have become a little unrealistic, in my opinion. And you kind of need to know what you're looking at for certain players before you set those expectations. Just because a guy's a high 4-star or even a 5-star does not mean he's ready to come in day one and contribute. There's a lot of factors that go into this. So the fact that these guys are into their second off season, their first full off season, like they had to get into college last year. They're coming from high school. They're coming into college. You're moving out of the house for the first time. You're finally on your own for the first time. You get a little bit of NIL money thrown your way. Oh, and you're trying to learn a college playbook. And all of a sudden you've got 90,000 people screaming at every game you go to. A little bit different than the 3,000 that were at your high school game, right? Like there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes into this. You get that first year under your belt. You get into that next off season, your first real off season where they can just focus on football, right? And you see a lot of these guys starting to take that next step. Hugh talked about Jay Crawford being even better, and that's another name that you continue to hear every day, that Jay Crawford is just locking it down over there, making interceptions, getting PBUs. He's just shutting Auburn's wide receiver group down. It ain't like he's shutting down Scrub. He's shutting down Cam Coleman's, Eric Singleton's, Perry Thompson's. So super fired up for that, man. And that's going to wrap it up for this episode. Please do me a favor again, if you're listening on audio, sub, turn on your notifications, leave a 5-star review. And if you're on YouTube, we're like 40 subs away from the next benchmark that I want to get to. So subscribe to the channel today. Smash that thumbs up button. Share it out on social media. Tag me at DMcShaw28. Tag the Warport Podcast Network. I will be back with you guys later in the week. Until then, it's War Damn Eagle. I'm out.